We're here because free speech is under attack. We're here because people are being convinced that socialism works. We're here because people are being judged guilty until proven innocent. We are fighting back with facts. This is not a safe zone, so buckle up, Buttercup. This is the raw, naked truth.
Israel retaliates against Iran. Pro-Hamas protesters arrested. A social media battle between the U.S. and China, and more. Welcome to the Raw Naked Truth. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin, and here's the news you need to know. Israel retaliated overnight against Iran's massive drone and missile attack on its territory with what appeared to be a limited strike aimed at avoiding an escalatory cycle that could push the countries closer to war. Secretary of State Antony Blinken declined to say whether the U.S. had received advance warning of Israel's strike. I'm not going to speak to that, except to say that the United States has not been involved in any offensive operations, Blinken said at a press conference at the end of a Group of 7 conference in Capri, Italy. His Italian counterpart, Antonio Tajani, said earlier Friday that Israel informed the U.S. of the plan at the last minute. Blinken also declined to characterize the Israeli strike on Iran and whether he considered it limited or an escalation. All I can say is that for our part and for the entire G7, our focus has been on de-escalation and avoiding a larger conflict. Senate Republicans are accusing the Democrats, including President Biden and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, of emboldening Iran prior to the country's recent attack on Israel. Instead of standing with our ally Israel, Democrats are focused on appealing to their radical left base, which hates Israel and is actively supporting Hamas and Iran, Senator Ted Cruz said. To appease his base, Joe Biden allowed over $100 billion to flow to Iran. Iran then used that money to make drones and cruise missiles to attack Israel, Cruz continued. In a very real sense, Joe Biden funded Iran's attack on Israel. The Democrat position on Israel and Iran is as illogical as it is indefensible. Trump's criminal hush money trial has its jury. 12 jurors and 1 alternate are finally seated after the court had struggled to impanel enough people who could be impartial. 2 jurors who had been seated earlier were dismissed yesterday. One was excused after she said she felt intimidated because personal information about her had been made public, while another was dismissed after prosecutors questioned whether he was honest about his arrest record. Once 5 more alternate jurors are picked, opening arguments can begin. The former president faces 34 felony charges of falsifying business records to cover up an alleged affair with adult film star Stormy Daniels. The misdemeanor charges are beyond the statute of limitations and are being propped up by an alleged federal charge which District Attorney Alvin Bragg does not have the jurisdiction to prosecute. Congress is fast-tracking a bipartisan effort to crack down on TikTok that could lead to passage of a law this month, forcing a sale or eventual ban of the popular Chinese-controlled app in the U.S. Despite TikTok claiming they are not controlled by the Chinese Communist government, the Chinese government has been lobbying Congress to defeat the bill. Meanwhile, China has ordered Apple to remove some of the world's most popular chat messaging apps from its app store in the country, the latest example of censorship demands on the iPhone seller in the company's second biggest market. Meta platforms WhatsApp and Threads, as well as messaging platforms Signal and Telegram, were taken off the Chinese App Store Friday. Apple said it was told to remove certain apps because of national security concerns, without specifying which. We are obligated to follow the laws in the countries where we operate, even when we disagree, an Apple spokesperson said. The messaging apps in question are encrypted and allow people to communicate without the Chinese government being able to eavesdrop. The NYPD raided an illegal open-air flea market operating in Squad Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's district earlier this week, confiscating counterfeit goods and other items. But some sellers have thumbed their noses at law enforcement and are back on the streets peddling their merchandise. The sellers, many of whom are reported to be illegal immigrants, have been blocking sidewalks in the Queens neighborhoods of Jackson Heights, Corona, and Elmhurst, shilling various items such as second-hand goods and clothes. Local residents say the neighborhood looks like a third-world country due to its shabby-looking and unsanitary-like conditions. Prostitution is also rampant in the area, with some nicknaming the neighborhood's main strip along Roosevelt Avenue as the Avenue of the Sweethearts. The expected Fed interest rate cuts in 2024 are no longer a sure thing. There is now a slight chance that the Fed will raise interest rates in June. This latest scenario can be seen in the market probability tracker of the Fed's regional bank in Atlanta. This comes on the heels of mortgage rates surging past 7%, and home sales in March posted their biggest monthly drop in more than a year, renewing pressure on the U.S. housing market as uncertainty over real estate commissions impacts the industry. Google has fired dozens of employees involved in pro-Hamas protests that took over the corporate offices in New York and Sunnyvale, California. In a memo to employees, Google Vice President of Global Security Chris Rakow announced that 28 staffers who participated in a 10-hour sit-in at the company's offices, including the personal office of Google Cloud CEO Thomas Kurian, were terminated Wednesday after an internal investigation. More than 100 pro-Hamas protesters were arrested on Thursday on the campus of Columbia University after its president authorized New York police to clear an encampment set up by students demonstrating against Israel's actions in Gaza. Columbia University President Namat Manoush Shafik, who a day earlier came under fire at a House of Representatives committee hearing on anti-Semitism on campus, said she had authorized police to clear an encampment of dozens of tents set up by protesters on Wednesday morning. Out of an abundance of concern for the safety of Columbia's campus, I authorized the New York Police Department to begin clearing the encampment, Shafik said in a statement. Shafik said that the protesters had violated the school's rules and policies against holding unauthorized demonstrations and were unwilling to engage with administrators. New York City Mayor Eric Adams said police made over 108 arrests without violence or injuries. Police said the arrests were related to trespassing. Included in those arrested was Representative Ilhan Omar's daughter, who earlier had been suspended from Barnard due to her pro-Hamas stance. That's the Raw Naked Truth. You can catch every episode of The Raw Naked Truth at xvadio.com, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech. We'll see you next time.